Welcome to Tomorrow Never Knows with me, Bob Wilson, Sir Warren Brown, and author Phil Weathers. Today we welcome a special guest, Mike Rabon, lead guitarist for the Five Americans. Mike is something else, and he'll take us behind the scenes of the 60s and so far beyond. First, a word from our sponsor. Beatles Magazine is a publication with 370 million visitors in all their pages, read by thousands of fans around the world every day. Beatles news is updated daily, 24 hours a day, audio, video, photos, interviews, contests, additional materials, and more. So follow Beatles Magazine, the most complete online coverage, 24 hours a day. And how many days a week, fellas?
8 days a week.
All right. So, Mike, please tell us about when you first picked up your guitar. And is it true your grandma taught you some chords? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was around 10 years old, and I found a guitar in a pawn shop that I had a hankering for. So I bought it. I had just enough money to buy. I think it was $10, and I took it over to my grandmother's to show it to her. And little did I know she needed 3 or 4 chords, and so I had her teach them to me. And from there, I was kind of on my own.
All right. Well, it seems like you did pretty good on your own.
Yeah.
What do Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, and Scotty Moore mean to you? Did they influence your playing, and what do you think about those guys?
Well, they, especially Elvis and Carl Perkins, were a pretty big influence because it was in the very late 50s when I first got serious about learning the guitar, and it was around probably 59, something like that. And they were a big influence on especially the radio from out of New Orleans, KNOE, and Chicago, WLS, which increased the signal strength on their stations after dark. So that's the way the radio was split up during those days. The stations that during the daytime had to give it up for stations at night. And I heard, Frankie, what's his name? Can't think of it right now, but C. Cruz and Carl Perkins, Blue Suede Shoes, and Elvis Presley. I actually got for Christmas that year, I think it was 1960, I could have my dates wrong, but I got a Heartbreak Hotel 45, and whatever's on the flip side. But I also got a record player, a little portable, and so I played those records until I wore them out. So they were a big influence.
After you became famous, did you get to meet any of those guys or anyone else? Where I know you're in the business, so it's another professional. But
Yeah.
Did you get to meet anybody you liked?
Well, Carl Perkins was a Nashville Southern artist, and Elvis Presley was in a tier above us, way above us, and so we seldom came into contact on the same shows because no one really wanted to open for Elvis Presley anyway, because the crowd came to see Elvis. So most of those times and on until the Beatles influence, those guys kind of put on their own shows. They could fill an auditorium by themselves. So, their managers and guys that are booking them didn't really book lesser bands like us, or I'm not lesser, but not as popular. And so they just, at that point in time, those guys were just overwhelming the radio airwaves and the concert venues. So we really never ran into them like we would other groups later, like Stephen Stills, Buffalo Springfield, Strawberry Alarm Clock, and Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Beach Boys, people like that's who we ended up touring with the most.
Well, those are some impressive names. How did the Five Americans come together?
Well, I did 6 months of active duty in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, right out of high school. And then I came back, and my mother and father were teachers, and I went to college at a little college just right up the road, 50 miles from us, called Southeastern State College. It's now a university, but anyway, that's where I always took my guitar and amp with me, where even to the Army, and then on to college. And I had the intentions of being a teacher like my mom and dad, but the more I played, I could see the popularity of being able to play the guitar and having an amplifier and all that, because my room stayed packed in the dormitory with guys wanting to hear. And I got the idea that maybe that was the way I wanted to go. So I needed a few more guys to help me out. So I recruited some guys on campus there and helped them learn the guitar and the bass, things like that. And we formed up a little band and played without a drummer for a while, and just beer busts and things that went on at college, the dances and things like that. And then it got to be the summer of 62, I think it was 62, and I was wondering what it would be like to record a record by then. And we'd made an attempt. I had to write a couple of songs that were failed attempts, but I tried it anyway. But I'd written an instrumental. And so my dad agreed to take us down to Dallas and pay for some studio time, just let us record. And so I took the band and we went down to Dallas, and mostly we were more interested in by then the girls and audiences. And so, but anyway, we recorded an instrumental and came back, and of course it received a lot of airplay on our local college station there and the local station there in town of Durant, Oklahoma. And so we after that we started writing. I did more tunes, and some of them were awful, some were not so bad. And so that summer of I'm just going to say 63, but it's hard for me to remember. We decided, I decided that we needed to go down to Dallas and get a gig, and do some playing and practicing and playing. So anyway, we did, and at that point we were known as the Mutineers, and we liked that name. We thought it was kind of swashbuckling and daring and all that. So anyway, we went to Dallas as the Mutineers, and once we got down there, the first job we got was at the Pirates Nook. It was a club. It was always odd to me that we were the Mutineers and we got a job at the Pirates Nook. So anyway, we played 7 days a week there, 4 hours a night, 8 hours on Sunday, a matinee, and we got really tight. And a guy came in, a local record producer came in and saw us and heard us and offered us to come downtown Dallas and meet with a manager. And so we did. And we ended up signing a contract. And he furnished us a place to practice. We quit our job at the Pirate Show, and he furnished us a little place over in Oak Cliff in Dallas to practice, and we practiced. We had an old tape recorder called they were called Wallen Sacks, and we got in these old abandoned buildings, and we played, and we recorded, and over and over and over, and listened to it back over and over until we got comfortable with an original song called "I See the Light," and so we told our manager. We went back downtown and told our manager we thought we were ready, and so he sent us to he put us on a plane. We'd never been on a plane, and he sent us to Nashville, and we recorded "I See the Light." Actually, we recorded another song. But then we came back, and that song he released it on a local label called Abnac, and it didn't go anywhere. I mean, it got us some nods in town there in Dallas, and upped our prices in clubs and stuff like that. But it didn't do much. And so then we wrote "I See the Light," and I did, and we got some studio time there in Dallas, and recorded it, and our manager put it out. He had a little label, as I said, called Abnac, and the song went to #1 in Dallas, and so
wow.
it broke. It started breaking out in other areas like St. Louis, just regionally, and so we began to join the world of pop artists, and so he sent us on tours, and we were a hard-working band there till about 65 and 66. We were working hard, and so we finally he put us on tour with Paul Revere and the Raiders up in Washington, and we toured through the Pacific Northwest, and we were driving back to Dallas after probably 20 days with the Raiders, and as we were going through, I saw a sign called Western Union sign, and so I thought, I wonder how it would be if a guy got a Dear John letter, a girl breaking up with him. But it didn't get it through a letter, but she sent it to a telegram, and which then was high, that was a lot high tech. That was high technology, and because it was a text is what it was, but a guy would come and he would go to one of the offices and give them your message, and a guy would pick it up and on a bicycle probably, and take it to a telegraph office and send it, and then they would in turn deliver it. Anyway, it was a long drawn out process, but I thought it would be unique for a girl to break up with a guy via the telegram, Western Union. Yeah, so we went down to Tyler, Texas, and recorded Western Union probably in about, I think it didn't take more than a couple of hours, if that long. And, it was simply done. It was 4 tracks and nice separation on the sound and all that, because later on there was 21, 25 track. People were layering on all kinds of stuff, but ours was just kind of like the Beatles. It was just simple 4 tracks, and drums, guitar, keyboard, and bass. And that song was one of the disc jockeys there at KLIF in Dallas listened to it, came over and listened to it, and he said, "You got a hit there." And so it was released once again, and once again on Abnac, and the thing went to like number 4, I think, in Billboard, and number 3 in Cashbox, and before we knew it, we were pop stars. So that's a long story, but that's it.
That's a good story. And over to my friend Phil.
Mike, I'm gonna make.
Oh, go ahead.
Mike, this is Phil. Listen, I'm gonna make a couple comments before I ask you another question.
Okay.
One, Western Union. That's always been one of my favorite songs. It's just I never get tired of hearing it. And second, I go to a local YMCA. Of course, it's closed now, but a few months ago, I was telling Bob this story. A few months ago, they have a cycle bike class, and it's in a room that's surrounded by plexiglass, but they have a great sound system. And I walked up by there, and they were playing. Guess what? Guess what they were working out to? Western Union.
Wow, that's funny.
And that's a true story.
Wow. Well, that's good. I'm always flattered to hear it still playing.
Yeah, it's a good song. I know there's videos of the Five Americans, YouTube and other places. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the? I know you were on some television programs. I think Dick Clark's American Bandstand even played some of your Five American songs. Can you talk a little bit about some of the shows you appeared on? Okay,
well, we played just about every town in the South during '67, which always helps a record if you back it. Excuse me, if you back it up with a tour. And we finally went to Los Angeles to play at the Whiskey A Go Go, and which was a very popular club then. And while we were there, we were contacted by producers from Dick Clark for us asking if we wanted to be on the show, if we would be on the bandstand. And of course we said yes. That was a national. It wasn't even syndicated at that time. I think it was just a national show every Saturday. And so we went over to the studios and did that show. And from that show, we did, in almost every town has a local, back then, large town like Chicago or Los Angeles has a local TV show. And we did several, almost every town we went to play, we would end up doing the TV show because people knew we were in town and they would contact us. So that was a tremendous push for that record, Western Union, and some of our other records, I See the Light, Western Union, Sound of Love was top 40. And so later on, about 68, Dick Clark started booking us on the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars. And that's where we met most of the other guys who all had a record or one, like I said, the Strawberry Alarm Clock and Every Mother's Son, all those 60s groups were on those shows, on the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars. So we were too, and we, from there, Dick Clark invited us. He would invite us to play on Where the Action Is, which was a syndicated a little show that he did on Saturday afternoons. It was mobile. It was done, on location. And we did that show probably 4 or 5 times, and it was also nationally syndicated nationally, and it was just a big push for our records. And so we had, even the records subsequent to Western Union did pretty well because of that. And, you know, we toured and toured and toured and worked hard. And we played in just about every state in the Union. And we played one night in Bangor, Maine, and caught a plane to Seattle and played there the next night. So, I mean, that's how hard we were working.
Wow. Listen, I read too somewhere, I believe that you worked with Bill Hawkins. I believe he might have produced some of your songs, the guy
True.
that composed Susie Q. Tell us a little bit of how that was.
Well, he came to work for our label, and it was just natural for him to, you know, work for our label, the label we were on, for him to produce us. So he flew in, and we got to know him. And in fact, he lived with me for a while, and while in Dallas there. And you know, he was just a guy trying to make a living, and he did have Susie Q, yeah, big song, and had some of the pickers on it were even bigger. And anyway, we got along good with Bill. He's a Southern boy from Louisiana, and we got along very well. And he didn't do too much producing, really. He was in the control room, and he kept us kind of in line, which is what a producer does. And so anyway, it turned out to be kind of a lifelong friend. In fact, I talked to him right before he passed a few years back, and he was still recording, still doing music.
Wow, that's great. Well, thank you for those answers, Mike, and I'm going to turn it over to Warren.
Okay.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate that very much. First of all, Mike, you have a big Southern drawl to your voice. Where are you from exactly?
I'm from Oklahoma.
You're from
Southeastern Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That sounds good. Yeah, I noticed a big drawl on your accent there, and I figured you were from the South somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, you know, thank you so much for coming on. I think your band is wonderful. The songs you have put out there are such great memories. And thanks for sharing, you know, with us about the Beatles, the Beach Boys, all these great bands from that time. And for me, it was an honor that you came on and graced our show. It just made me so happy that you bring back those great memories. And I think you and Phil, you got those classic Southern draws. It reminds me of Carl Perkins and Elvis and Scotty Moore and all your heroes who I love so much. So I love that. I love the way you guys talk. And you come from a great part of America that, you know, built up our nation. And I'm so glad you were here today. And, you know, and you got to come back sometime. You got to promise us when you get a chance you'll come back and talk to us again. What do you say?
I'll be happy to. Sorry I'm limited, but I had a little radiation to my throat. It's been about 20 years, but that stuff never goes away, that radiation. So it has to cut me short on interviews. But I appreciate it, and I thought maybe if you had a link, I could put it on my
Well, as soon as we get that, we're going to send that right over to you. And God bless you, and I hope you're feeling better fast. Because you're such an important part of rock history, and thank you so much for being here. It meant a lot to me, and I know everybody else.
Oh, thank you, Bob. Enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mike.
Well, I had a great time listening to our guest, and he brought me back to that great point in rock and roll that I love. And Phil made his down south connection with this one to reel him in, so we thank Phil. And as always, we thank Warren for getting through all the audio problems we had and making us great videos. So thanks to you guys. And why don't we sing out with our classic tradition that we have of with the Beatles at the end to close out the show. What do you guys say?
Let's go.
You can say yes or at least answer me.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. And in the end,
the love you take
is equal to the love you make. Great show, guys. I enjoyed the stories.